Hey guys, Mustached Tom here to review the series of Season 2 of Hazbin Hotel. This will be a spoiler review, so if you have not yet seen Season 2, this will entail, well, spoilers, so you have been warned. With that being said, I'm also here to be as objective as possible. I understand that the Hazbin Hotel hate is not going away anytime soon, and there is the overglazing of the show, so it is nice to find that nice middle ground and see where the show actually lies, stripping away feelings and just looking at setup, payoffs, character work, and all that stuff, and seeing how that is in tandem. I think the best place to start is the music, since it's a musical overall. I would say that Season 2's overall plethora of songs are a significant, or I would say not as significant, but I think a better word would be a slight improvement from Season 1. From Season 1, from the songs I can remember, I think the weakest of the song list which wasn't a lot of the songs, which I would argue that the weakest one was Welcome to Heaven. And by that connection, I would argue that Season's 2 weakest song just so happens to also be a heaven-related song. It's the one where Sir Pentious is being guided around heaven, seeing how everything great is there. And I would argue that song, the Pangolin Heaven is Great song, is better than Welcome to Heaven. So even its weaker songs, I would say, are stronger than Season 1's weak song. So let's start with that. Overall, outside of that song, obviously, everyone, I think most people have said that Gravity is quite the banger of a song. And a criticisms were levied after that song, which is interesting. That being what happens to Lute. Now, let's not jump ahead of ourselves. Let's state the premise of Season 2, which pretty much picks up where Season 1 left off. This now being that Vox is stepping up with the V's to take control, and Charlie is trying to obviously learn, and has learned as early as episode 1, that her hotel actually does work from the angels. This causes her to become desperate enough and sort of fall back on her faults, that being not listening to her girlfriend Vaggie, who has a story about wanting to change her name, which I would argue is definitely one of the criticisms I would levy against the show. Now, when I initially heard that she was going to change her name, I had this weird, initial reaction to it where I thought, oh, she's going to change her name to Vivzy after the creator, isn't she? I honestly thought that's where it was going initially, and then lo and behold, the payoff was just changing one letter, and then it still sounds the same. I don't think that's a great joke or good character writing, so I think it's a failure on both fronts, honestly. I know they went over a few names on Season 2, but I feel like, I don't know, there's more power in changing the name than sticking to it. But maybe that's a subjective preference, I suppose. So yeah, I am noting that is subjective, if you will note. I'm doing that very carefully to note that is a subjective thing that I'm pulling from an objective thing that happened in the series. That being Vaggie sticking to her name. Anyway, at that rate, the other joke that I would say doesn't land, because there are a few comedic beats as well as, as it is to do in this show, is the Baxter joke, where he just is suddenly all in on this plan, and he goes on about this whole 45-degree angle bit on the bed. This is just a payoff without a setup, is what I call this. Which I find baffling because earlier in the series they had a montage of Vaggie, helping the other hotel guest be comfy and all of that. It would have been an interesting little bit, and maybe I missed it. I'm pretty sure it's not there though. That a bit where Vaggie is the one who shifts the coat to 45-degree angle, as to Baxter's liking, and then we actually hear the setup, the payoff to that setup there in the same position. It's so baffling that that's a minor adjustment that you can make, and then that fixes the joke, because it's just a payoff without a setup. That's weird that jokes, that jokes need to be explained in this sort of fashion, I guess, but here we are. The third and final issue that came up was in terms, as I already mentioned, with loot. Now, I don't see what the issue is, honestly. I don't understand the criticisms quite yet. They say, I've heard people say that she was an undermined villain, but she's not the villain of this season, so I don't get that criticism at all. And, people were thinking she was just going to do more. I also don't kind of understand that one at all. It seems like they're holding off on her for either season 3, which has already been greenlit, or I think they said even season 4. I forget if it was both seasons or just one, but one of them I know for sure was greenlit, so I don't know why people are jumping the gun on that criticism. It doesn't make any sense to. Her highlight is arguably the best song in this season, Gravity. And, from that position, which people are arguing that she didn't do much since then, she's trying to convince the Seraphim to go down and attack, and there's no other way. And when Emily gets attacked, she gets that chance to attempt to attack, and then it's Adam, who has a quicker character arc than I've probably ever seen in a character in a long time, because it happens within a musical number, literally. From being this shy and timid, almost not wanting to do anything, to standing his ground and telling her not to. So, and once he puts on that helmet, she's so fixated on Adam that, messes with her mind and, forces her to go back to be compelled to. Obviously, the stronger writing portions come from the deal-making portions of the show. They really kept those close to the chest and made sure they all interacted with one another. That all revolving around Alistair and the whole 7-year bit. So obviously there is strong writing here, and obviously I should point this out. Musicals count as writing. I think one of the problems I have with certain critics who review the musical portion as a separate entity from writing. I feel that's the case from some of the criticisms I hear or have heard, even as early as season 1. And I never understood any of these criticisms in particular. Obviously, again, just to reiterate, musicals, you have to write the words. That's writing. So, if you're going to say that writing is bad, that would have to include the music in the show too. So I would caveat critics to be a little bit more careful when they make such blanketed statements, because I have heard people say that the show is just bad writing or there's bad lore or whatever, and I don't think that's quite the case when, you have some of the best music that has been produced and has been blowing up all over the internet, so... And yeah, somebody can counter that by saying you're just appealing to popularity, and sure. But the music is also moving the story along. It's always progressing something, with one exception, I would argue, that being the Nifty song. That's just a random song. I mean, it's a catchy, weird song, but hey, I've never been a proponent that not every song needs to perpetuate the plot forward. And a lot of these songs do, or it tells you of a motivation of a character. That is something that is very atypical, or very typical, if not atypical, but typical within musical numbers. Telling us, the audience, of the character's desires, dreams, aspirations, whatever word you want to use, in the form of a song. And of course, you have your unifying songs, your reprisals. These things are just, they really thread the needle very carefully with their music. Obviously, paying attention to what has been used before and reintegrating it in a way that not only is it just a callback, but it's a callback with a purpose. So yeah, there's definitely quite a lot of strong writing happening here, with a few missteps along the way. I'm not going to pretend like I said at the intro, I'm not also here to glaze Hazbin Hotel completely. Again, I'm trying to be as objective as possible. So yeah. There were people who were frustrated with Charlie's character, that coming through her character flaw. I wouldn't criticize that, because I think that was handled in a nice little package where it wasn't just... Sure, the moment in itself is, a singular song, but, the character flaw being held is actually what's more compelling, and then it dropping. That, to me, shows restraint. So I'm actually going to argue in favor of that being good writing versus bad writing, versus Abel, where I feel like that one is a lot more just... That doesn't feel as earned in comparison to Charlie's moment, because it's really unclear, why Abel suddenly found this inner strength, other than just saying a few words to himself. I mean, that was really it, and it was within a matter of seconds, not episodes, moments, in that one moment. So again, I would argue that Abel's character arc is actually worse than Charlie's, if that's the metric you want to use. So yeah, you have the stuff with Loot that I referred to, that being, and the jokes that didn't quite land as well. You have the V's falling out, which was inevitable due to Alistair's prying and Vox's ambitions being far too great and far too self-impeding to, not get himself in that situation, in which, again, is strong writing. It's his own character flaws that are dismantling himself. And strengths, by that very proxy, would, it, conversely, through Charlie, is what is allowing her, with now Vaggie with an I, is able to, win the day, as it were, quote-unquote, using the power of friendship, as they literally say in the show. So, that's not me saying, something out of nowhere. In terms of season 3, obviously they're setting up something more with Loot. We're finally going to learn about this whole deal aspect with Charlie's mom, quote unquote mom, quote unquote. I don't know. Like, there's a whole lot of theories around. I don't understand most of them right now. Just for the simplicity of this review, I'll just refer to her as mom without any further context, just because that's what Charlie answers on the phone for the time being. At any rate, so yeah, I would say most of the series has some solid moments, and there was one other pitfall I almost neglected to mention, but I figure I would, and it is an Alistair moment, which is interesting, because the deal portion is the strongest part, but he also kind of also has one of the weakest parts where one of his deals that he made, the one with the cannibal lady, I actually don't remember her name right now, off the top of my head. She says, "As you know, this is our deal." This is a bad writing trope for those unfamiliar with writing. Telling a character something they already know is sort of like, well, then why are you telling them that? It's explicitly for us, the audience. It makes it obvious that you're breaking a piece of, the writing, sort of a writing guideline, almost closer to a rule that you ought to not be breaking. Now, there are ways around this. A character with amnesia, I mean, it's a very common trope, I would argue overused, but still, saying an "as you know" to a person who has amnesia, well, they have amnesia, so they actually wouldn't know. They would have to be retaught a thing. So that could be like a thing. Or perhaps she's explaining it to another character, and maybe Alistair happens to overhear in, this, maybe it's Vox. Maybe Vox visited her. I don't know, something so that it's not him already knowing that that's the deal. It just feels completely unnecessary for that to be the way that that's written. Again, there are ways around that dilemma to feed the very same information to us, the audience. There are ways to write that don't make it sound so almost like you're breaking something, like you're breaking, sense of the world, of the characters, of, well, what they know in this case. So that's the third flaw that I figured I would point out, outside of the two jokes that I feel did not land quite as well as they could have. Outside of those three issues, I don't really see any other major issues in the shows that are like, plot or writing breaking outside of those three. But three is quite a lot. But also, again, the musical numbers, in terms of their rating, also hold still two very strong. So I would still argue that this is still an 8 out of 10 in terms of a score. The flaws, the jokes don't land it, that's just more of a subjective, it just doesn't quite land as well in a setup and payoff sort of way, but doesn't really ruin the story by any means. And like, the only fix you would need to do with Alistair's bit is rewrite just a small portion of that to make it solid. Outside of that, this season is really solid. Again, 8 out of 10 is nothing to laugh at here. So that's my review of Hazbin Hotel Season 2. No, obviously, I now make the joke that, of course, I still wanted to be a voice actor on this show, but I know I would never be able to make it. And now I'm super confident that that's the case. Obviously, only Broadway singers have been allotted this opportunity, seemingly. And that I am not. I am some small, insignificant YouTuber who's just trying to get by, and yeah. Anyway, if you happen to get this far in this review, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, make sure to check out those links in the description. One will head you to my petition to help out small YouTubers. Second, to my PayPal, where you can help support me and my channel directly. And third, to my Discord server. You can join, collab, shield, do all that cool stuff for free. And until next time, everyone, bye-bye.